Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be joining us today. Welcome to our panel, and welcome to the World Travel Catering and Onboard Services Virtual Expo. We're excited and pleased that you're joining us. My name's Sandra Pineau Bodison, and I'm currently an independent consultant with the Hayward Partnership, as well as president of the IFSA Scholarship Foundation Board, where we award scholarships to new entrants in the industry. I've got over 30 years experience in airline and airline catering, primarily with Continental Airlines and United Airlines, with my most recent role as Senior VP of Customers, where I had responsibility for in-flight service, onboard, catering, as well as customer experience in our reservations team. So I am pleased to be your moderator today and looking forward to the discussion. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to WTCE and Onboard Hospitality for providing this platform and venue where our key leaders can really talk about issues that impact the future of our industry. And so today's discussion will actually align with that. So we have today a career in onboard hospitality, engaging and inspiring new generation leaders to join our industry. So as many of us have been in the industry for quite some time, and some are new entrants to the industry, I know when I started in 1990 and I was hired by Chelsea Catering, a subsidiary of Continental Airlines, I had no idea what was in the airline catering arena in the flight kitchen. So it's really an area that's eye-opening as a career. How can we really promote that? So as we've seen during the pandemic, we've actually lost a lot of talent in our industry. So how do we build that strength back up? How do we bring onboard hospitality to the forefront as a career and encourage the next generation and new leaders to join our teams? So I'm not answering that alone. I have help today. So we have an esteemed panel joining us today of industry experts that have diverse experience. And so one thing they have in common is a passion for this topic. And secondly, they're all part of our People Action Group, which is a group of team members and leaders from diverse areas of the industry that are talking about these areas and talking about what the needs are to build our future talent. So what I'll do is I'll introduce them very quickly, and then I'll hand it over to each one of them to give a little bit more background on their experience and any thoughts that they have before we start the discussion. So firstly, we have Sinja Wohan, who is head of HR and people management at LSG Group. We have Mike Pooley, who's a partner with the Hayward Partnership and a colleague of mine. April Watterston, who is assistant editor and travel journalist with Onboard Hospitality. We have Holly Ledbetter, who is also insights lead with Monty's Bakehouse. And we have Helen Jones, who is product development manager with Niche Free From Kitchen. So welcome to everyone. It's exciting to have you here. So I will hand it over to each of you to give a little bit of background and insights on your experience and any thoughts you have on the session today. So I will pick on you, Mike, and start with you, and then we'll kind of go around the room.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, good evening, and good morning if that's applicable to everybody. Mike Pooley, many of you will know I've been in the industry for a number of years, coming up to 27th year in September. In that time, I've been very fortunate to have traveled the world, spent nearly 20 years with Gate Group, so I've worked with many major airlines, worked on projects and developments worldwide. And in that time, I've experienced great support from teams, great leadership examples, and a feeling of great camaraderie and the spirit of unity, which is, if never before, so relevant in our industry at the current time as we try to push for recovery away from the COVID-19 pandemic. As a board advisor, as a mentor, as a coach, as a person involved in consultancy, I'm fairly well, exposed, I would say, to many of the issues facing the industry today, and gives me an opportunity to, as Sandra said, get really involved in people retention, people development, succession planning, business redesign. Organizations have to adjust according to the current state of affairs, and I'm quite involved in some of those projects at the moment. But I'm driven by the belief that there is a lot of talent and there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm that's still very rife in this industry. And we need to tap in more than ever to protect and nurture this skill set, but also to, of course, provide resilience and support at a time when both large corporations and smaller businesses are all going through some change, some, of course, not pleasant, but overall, we're looking for optimism and a resurgence.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Sandra?
Yeah, Sandra, also from my side, thank you for the warm welcome and hello around the globe to everyone watching us here now today. I'm very happy to be part of this panel today, and I can just confirm what Mike has just stated. Having been in this sector and industry for by now also more than 15 years in several different roles and working together globally with extremely passionate and highly engaged people is something that is, for me personally, strongly related to my work and being part of this extraordinary environment. And for me, today, this session is really important to bring in some more transparency into what this world is about, how attractive that can be, even in times of extreme pressure and change, which is definitely strenuous for people and difficult to handle uncertainty. But from my personal experience, and Mike can probably confirm that, having been around for a while, we have come through quite some years of volatility, and every cycle has made us stronger. And this is actually the exciting piece that I personally feel about our industry, that it's never getting boring. And if you have the passion for what we do, then you can come out of crises even stronger than before. And to engage, to bring people into this environment and showing them this exciting world is something that is very close to my heart. And having been in diverse HR roles as well as in-flight management, airline catering, and also, having actually worked as a flight attendant at some point in my career, has given me quite a broad and diverse insight into this industry. And I'm using this to have a good relationship, stay close to people, understand what their needs are, and it will be my continuous contribution and ambition to push that further for our industry here. And I'm very excited to join in this panel today. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Sandra. We'll move on to April.
Yes, hi, thank you for that introduction. So yes, I'm April. I'm assistant editor at Onboard Hospitality magazine. I joined Onboard Hospitality in 2019 as a journalist, and this is only actually my second job after graduating university, so I still feel like I'm very early on in my career. And I suppose I have a different perspective to the other panelists in that I'm actually a journalist and media graduate first and have fallen into this industry through a combination of luck and chance. But yes, I suppose I've been watching the industry for just over 2 years, and I just find it mad that I hadn't really considered its existence before. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'm interested in with this topic, is sort of exposing the industry and building awareness to both new potential work candidates and travellers alike.
Great, thanks, April. We'll move on to Holly.
Hi everyone, I'm Holly. I've been running the Insights program at Monty's Bakehouse for nearly 3 years, and that involves tracking food trends, analysing market data, and talking to lots of consumers to inform our team on what new business opportunities to go after and what new products to launch next. I've actually just done some research on what passengers care about when it comes to their health and well-being whilst flying, and how they expect airlines to improve their product offerings. Really happy to be here today and to be part of the conversation.
Great, thanks, Holly. And last but not least, we'll go to Helen.
Hi everyone, I'm Helen Jones. I originally trained as a chef, so my passion is food. I worked in London for a number of years in various restaurants. I then moved to Ireland to study food product development and kind of began working with a retail-based allergen-free bakery company. So I was mainly working in breads, wraps, baguettes for retail, exporting to the US and a bit of food service as well. I then fell into the airline industry when I came back to the UK and began working for Niche Free From Kitchen, which is a special meals provider for airlines, travel, private healthcare. We do a little bit of NHS as well, and that's trying to cover as many of those IATA codes we all love in one meal.
Great. Thank you, Helen. And I'm pleased to be here as a moderator with this group. I think we talked about a diverse group, and that's what we have. We have some with more industry experience, but we also have some that are new to the industry. And so we want to make sure we have a voice for all of those and collaborate and really explore this topic. So first, we'll actually touch on some discussion items and some questions that are more around the talent and attracting the talent. And then we want to delve a little bit into even the consumer side and what that looks like for our next generation of leaders. So I'll start off with a question, and I'll pick on Mike one more time. I don't think I'll do it the entire time, but what do you think, Mike, is the biggest challenge and opportunity our industry faces right now between people and talent, especially as we emerge from this pandemic, and hopefully we continue to emerge, but certainly at this time?
I think first and foremost, there are a lot of challenges, Sandra. So I'm going to try and pick on one which bothers me and frustrates me at the moment, and that is the uncertainty which prevails around recovery in our sector. So we've all been through very tough times globally. There's really nothing in terms of the sector and its supply chain that's not been impacted by what we've had to go through over the last 15 to 18 months. So globally, I think recovery was something which we anticipated and we really hoped would happen a lot quicker than it has done. So it's been very difficult for corporations and SMEs to react entirely appropriately or entirely precisely in terms of the calendar as to when we're going to start to see people travel again, to see aircraft hit the skies again, and to feel that, you know, some of those projections that people made around the end of 2020, we're past that, the end of 2021, we're sadly racing towards now Q4. We're still seeing quite a lot of uncertainty and instability around the industry. So one of the things that concerns me is that while we've got that, it's difficult. It's difficult for businesses to reorganize with any real optimism. It's difficult for supply chains to start really optimizing efficiently in the way that they would want to obviously drive out cost and improve performance and service, when we're still getting a bit of a stop-start sensation literally worldwide at the moment. Out of that, however, on the plus side, I do see opportunities. We're talking about talent a lot today. We're talking about bringing skills and talent into our sector. And one of the ways we can do that is we look at the development, which is, I think, going to be very much a practical focus for all of us in the next months and years ahead, that the business has changed. The way we manage passengers on board in terms of service, the way caterers will uplift and provide their service, the way that menus will be designed, and the way that people will be involved in providing a passenger experience, all of those things are going to shift. There will be a shift change, I think, predominantly that people are going to have to embrace change. That's inevitable. But they're going to do it because it's the only way we're going to get this industry back on its feet. So in that respect, when we look at talent, I think we're looking at opportunities in digitalization, in technology generally, in operational performance and excellence that will allow industry and sectors to recruit new talent into the business. We'll get new brains, we'll get new perspectives, we'll get new vision. We're already seeing that as part of our own people group and bringing the next generation along as we're trying to do at the moment. It is time to see a shift, and it's time to put some of the onus for recovery onto younger shoulders and protect, potentially more agile minds. So that's the optimistic side, which I'll leave you on. It's tough at the moment, but I see that we can bring something fresh and new in as a result of the changes that have to be made.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Thanks, Mike. Sandra, do you have anything to add?
It's hard to add to such a complete summary here, but thanks very much for that. Actually, Mike. What I can definitely also confirm from the inside view from the LSG group is that effect of the uncertainty piece, not having a clear perspective, so struggling with giving guidance and orientation. And this is something that we hear from all parts of our organization, that there is a clear need for working towards a common goal, where we can, live up to that team spirit and have that great experience all together, hands-on, pick up and find new ways of doing business. But this is also something that I see currently in, at least with the glimpses that we see around the globe, with here and there a little bit of business picking up again, really focusing on the ramp up. So this is definitely a challenge to do that globally in a consistent way, and assuring quality the way and the processes, as Mike has elaborated on, and the way that we have done in previous years, and refocusing again. But I also agree to that piece around the opportunities, really seeing, the pressure, and what I said in my little introduction as well. This really forces you to think differently, to open up and find new ways, and it brings in creativity and innovation. And if you manage to tackle that and make use of that, then there's definitely also a chance to find new ways, incorporating new methodologies, new ways of doing business. And this provides opportunities for young people to come in, to actually really drive from the start and have an impact on the new development, creating the future of a company. So this is something that I can definitely also see currently in the developments that we are focusing on.
I think definitely the last couple of years have changed our perspective on what change is, and being open to new ways of doing business, just because I don't think we would have ever thought there was such an extreme situation such as the pandemic. So thank you both. So I'll move on to kind of our next generation, the ones that are starting their careers, and ask the question, as you're looking at companies, what are your priorities when you're looking at your employer? What's important to you? And what can a company offer to entice you either to join or to stay with them? What are some of the things that are important from your side? And I'll go ahead and start with Holly and kind of get your input on that one.
Yeah, sure. I think it's really important for companies to look at the environmental, social impact, as well as profits. So we now talk about the triple bottom line rather than just the bottom line. So looking after people, planet, and profits. I'm really passionate about finding ways to do business for good, and I think it makes your role much more fulfilling, knowing that you're contributing to good causes in your work.
And would you say there's anything from a company also that, is there something that would be a priority for you in joining a company in terms of your work environment or anything along those lines?
Yeah, so I guess a blessing in disguise out of the pandemic has meant that everyone's got accustomed to remote working. And I think, obviously, it's really nice to be in the office and be face-to-face with your colleagues, but there are times when it's good to be able to work remotely and to kind of have time to focus, and to also just be a bit more flexible with your work hours and things like that.
Absolutely. I think a lot of companies are considering that now, whether it's remote or hybrid, certainly since we've been doing it for so long. Helen, anything to add?
I think where I am, it's really difficult to work remotely because we're in food production. I need to be on the floor. I need to be walking it every day. So I haven't really been afforded the luxury of working from home. But I think what's come with that is a bigger sense of community as well within the workplace. So for me, it's about the culture. It's about how people treat each other. You don't just know the top people in the company, you know everyone down to your pot washer. And you have to appreciate the job that they're doing in the way that they have to work. But from a slightly more selfish point of view, if I'm evaluating a company, it's about career progression for me. I want to know that I can constantly learn. I don't want to ever just sit in a position and stay there. I always want to be learning from people that have more experience than me, and I have clear goals for improvement, and I can develop not just the skills in the role, that I become a better all-rounder. So I'm not sent on an Excel spreadsheet course, I'm sent on a management course or a communication course or something that's going to make me perform better in the role that I am.
Right. Good point. April, let me ask you, why do you think it's important to have new talent in our industry, speaking from your perspective?
Well, there's lots of reasons. In the past year, we've all been forced to innovate with our products and our ways of working. And I think that new talent can help that momentum keep going, and to constantly innovate and to not settle and to keep striving for answers to problems and really just keep bettering ourselves. I don't like to talk about new talent as young talent because I think it can just quickly become quite ageist, but it is worth noting that for the most part, new graduates at the moment are all part of the Gen Z cohort, and members of that generation are known for being digital natives and being passionate about causes like sustainability and equality, and overall they just have a very different perspective to the generations that precede them. So I think listening to those fresh perspectives is important to keep the industry moving forwards. And also we need to appeal to those young generations because it won't be long until they make up the majority of travellers. So understanding their needs going forward and how better can we do that than getting them on board and involved in the decision-making process. But it's not just graduates who can be defined as sort of new talent. People undertaking a career change and coming to our industry from other sectors like retail or fashion design or other areas of hospitality, for example, can bring with them expertise, knowledge, trends, connections, all of which can be really valuable in innovating our own products and services.
And that's a good point. I think that's why we don't say young and we say next generation, because it can be someone with a career change, but they bring a robust new set of eyes when they're looking at our industry. How do we make them aware of our industry, I think is what we've been talking about to really promote it. So moving on, we'll say, I always think that airline and airline catering and onboard hospitality is a bit of a mystery. I think everyone in their intro talked about falling into it, or it was by chance or something along those lines. I don't think there's usually courses, airline catering, airline supplier, processes, products. There's not usually direct, but it is a bit of a mystery until you're exposed to it. And then it opens up a whole new door and a whole new set of opportunities. So Mike, I would just ask you, what do you think companies should be doing today to attract new talent, to kind of solve that mystery and kind of unpack it for those that could be joining us?
Well, I think mystery is not, it's not too strong a word. It's not misplaced in your description, Sandra. So I back you with that sort of idea about where the industry is perceived and what it offers, because certainly in my own experience, I'm now a student mentor at Oxford Brookes University School of Hospitality and Tourism. I went there many years ago. When I left, I certainly never considered that or researched, an opportunity in this sector. I literally fell into it in the 90s because a headhunter called me one day and offered me an opportunity to work with Gate Gourmet, who were at that point just starting up in the UK. And that was the first time I ever really turned my lens on what happens to get an aircraft in the sky. How do all those products and how those services arrive in the cabin? So I would agree with you that, in that particular area, of course, it was operational, but now, as we've been hearing, the requirement for transferable skills and bringing fresh, enthusiastic eyes and ears into our business, as April was saying, is critical. And I wonder, if I should put my own hat on as a recruitment specialist within the Hayward Partnership, where I'm now, of course, working quite a lot with both candidates who are seeking opportunities and companies who are trying to place people. And sometimes, they want the perfect candidate. I always say there is no perfect candidate, but then there is also no perfect job. There's always some level of compromise when you look at putting people together. And I would take, again, my experiences in hospitality, where I always describe the DNA of being in a business which operates 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The aviation industry does much the same thing. So immediately, when I'm looking at people who I feel might be appropriate to bring into the sector, I look at services, facilities, and hospitality as being very good breeding grounds, if you like, for the kind of talent and level of suitability for candidates that the industry might bring in. So it's very important in advertising for roles that we do absolutely the best we can to sort of put a future nuance on that role. Make sure that people realise this is not an outdated, old-fashioned industry. It needs technology to drive it along. It needs project management to bring it to levels of efficiency. It needs people like Holly to dive into insight and research. And these are the jobs that really, there are a lot of graduates out there who would be, with the right training and the right onboarding, very appropriate. How often we unfortunately see must have 10 years experience, must have 5 years experience. It drives me mad when we're looking quite often at junior positions and we're asking for ridiculous amounts of experience and ridiculous amounts of bandwidth to fulfill a job which fundamentally we know can probably be very, very well absorbed, understood, and run very well within 6 to 12 months of somebody boarding, if they've got the right level of training and the right level of development that's supporting their role, not just in what they're doing, but also getting a broader understanding of the business that they're in, the market that they've entered into. And I think sometimes, employers are very busy or they're narrow in the sense that they don't look at candidates broadly enough. Also, why don't they bring candidates in and really position them, put them in front of a panel, make them pitch, make them do something which shows their practical agility to perform a task. 3 things more than anything are required in this business. One is agility, the other is energy, and the other one is that sense of being ready to take on something and have that peripheral vision that you see outside of what's in front of you to what might happen. And I think we're blessed in many industries with transferable skills that would fit our business very well. FMCG, retail, for example. So I'm just keen to get people to sort of maybe stop looking in the traditional way. Don't just look at a LinkedIn profile. Just don't look at bringing 10 people in just because that fulfills the agency's compliment that they found you 10 people. Find the 3 people that when you screened them and understood their capability, their capacity to do the job, would really be the right 3 candidates to put in front of a panel. And get them to come in, work alongside a team for a day or so, get the opinion of the team. Just make this experience a little bit more fulfilling, a little bit more robust, and I think potentially a little less expensive because you won't be going out and re-recruiting again 3 months later.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And a day, even like you said, in the kitchen. So there's some realization to what it entails in terms of the environment. Helen, anything to add?
Where I studied my undergraduate degree had an entire aviation sector. So it wasn't necessarily onboard hospitality, but it was about airline management. And we were in the same building together. And not once did any of the chefs or any of the food professionals ever have a mention of going into the airline industry. These were people that were training to be professional chefs, work in product development, work in management positions. And it was just never an option for me. And if you look at a production chef, they're working often more friendly hours than you might find in a restaurant, shall we say. So it's often a Monday to Friday. It's still long hours, it's still a hot kitchen, but it's a bit more friendly to somebody that might be a bit uncertain about the kind of restaurant industry. And I think the MPD side that I do in the product development, when I was working in retail, I'd maybe get 1 shot a year to get into a retailer. In the airline industry, we've got 3 or 4 calls a year. That's 3 or 4 brand new menus that have to be developed and tested and signed off by the customer and presented. That level and that pace is so more interesting to me as someone who works in product development than working on 1 project a year. And I think that mystery, shall we say, that we were talking about just isn't revealed to people that maybe are looking for a higher pace than they found somewhere else.
Right. That's a good point. So specific to LSG Group, Sandra, I know you've been very involved on the people side and the HR side, obviously. What are some of the programs you've either implemented or you're looking at implementing now to kind of tackle this attraction of new talent into the industry?
Yeah, before I start, Helen, I really like the energy, how you're talking about your job and the opportunities that you have, and how it's actually attractive and different to other related jobs in other spheres. And that's really something that is relating really strongly with me. So thanks for sharing your thoughts on that. And maybe I can actually pick up exactly at that point regarding what we have been doing in the past years and ongoingly are, and hopefully can pick up on sooner than later regarding the pandemic situation. We have also been looking into that, let's say, mystery, and how can we actually bring across to people the excitement and the opportunities that we have within our business, and make it a little bit more transparent and something tangible, so that you can actually experience what it's about, so that you can make your own choice and say, hey, this is something for me, or it's not. So I think it's a fair process of opening the doors, letting people experience what it's all about. So what we have done for many years is to ensure ongoingly around the globe internship programs, so that people early in their careers, while they are studying, get the insights in what is our business about, how does it actually feel when you do it inside, when you work in the teams, and what's the culture about, and what kind of opportunities do we have in the different functions. And if you do the same job in Europe or in North America or in Asia, it might be completely different. But working in that global environment can be something quite thrilling and fostering growth and talent. So we have put together several programs. One of the let's say core elements, which is really close to my heart as well, was the cross-border program that we installed for many years. Unfortunately, we had to stop that due to the current situation. But what we did in that is to really incorporate that transparency, that tangibility, and that global experience in that program. So what we did, starting with the hiring process, was to let them experience a day in operations. As Helen just said, open the doors and walk them through the operations. How does one of those kitchens look like, and what kind of processes are related to that? And the reaction usually is, wow, I had no idea about the complexity and how many people are involved to actually bring out that one flight and get that going on time. So that excitement that you can immediately get going in that just one day is key to hook people to what we do. And we have designed the programs in a way that we let them experience different functions in different regions. So they're kind of traveling around the globe, which is also for me personally the beauty of our business, really connecting with people around the world, and being part of different parts of the business, and then learning from each other and transferring that knowledge, that learning from region to region and from function to function. That cross-functional and cross-regional experience is extremely valuable for us, especially in times of pressure, and where you kind of need to find new ways of getting out of the crisis, because this is how we do best practice sharing around the world and learning from each other. And this is something that you have to really foster, that people have to learn from the beginning, that they learn to value and make sure that they keep up that network. And this is something that we have really built into our programs. And also when it comes to not only talent management, but let's say leadership development, we try to rotate every person from role to role every 5 years, to give them the opportunity to try out something new, to do something in a different role or maybe in a different region, and open up those opportunities. Because when you have that rotation process going, it opens up also opportunities for young talents or for uprising people in the organization, and that speed of mixture and interaction, and always challenging ourselves and thinking in a new way, and taking over new responsibilities is something that keeps up the minds and open up the minds to develop the business for the future.
Yeah, I think Helen mentioned that earlier too, is not just being sort of in one space and actually learning other areas too, which really, I think, rounds out your experience too. So recognizing that we're in a unique time, and with our next generation panel members, I know, April, you said young. I don't want to say young either, because I think that that's, then you say old on the other side, and it's actually experienced or seasoned. So I think we're all learning from each other, and that's what the two-way street is. So in sort of this mode where you're at today, what excites you about future careers in the industry? And then on the flip side, what concerns you? So I'll start with Holly. So what excites you? What concerns you?
I think what I find most exciting is, I guess, the opportunity we have to solve some of the sustainability issues within the industry. I think in the research we've done so far, with both what consumers think about sustainable products on board and with the actual science behind those products, it's really complex and it's really confusing. But I think with, putting great minds together and solving through those problems, there's a huge opportunity for travel a lot more sustainable. And I think in the future, there'll be more and more jobs working on the sustainability of the travel industry.
Yeah, I definitely
I
think
guess
that's been...
what concerns me is, how complicated the problem is.
Yeah. And it's really in the forefront now. You're seeing quite a bit of it. Carbon offset, all the other things, the recyclables, and challenged too with the fact that we're boarding things differently today, more for safety and hygiene, which isn't always the most sustainable either. So how do you balance that and solve for that going forward as well? Great. April, anything to add?
Yeah, I share the same sort of thoughts really. I think obviously for the industry, it's been a really tough couple of years. And I joined the team at Onboard Hospitality in July 2019, which means really most of my experience and knowledge so far of the industry has actually been gained through like a COVID tinted lens. And so, yeah, it's been a really awful time, but when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And seeing how the industry has reacted to the new challenges we face has been inspiring and in a way quite exciting. So yeah, for example, before COVID, I was really interested in learning about sustainability within our industry and pushing sustainable initiatives up the agenda with our magazine and its content. And I think, well, from my perspective, COVID has certainly sort of expedited that with developments in pre-ordering and digitalization, for example. And I know lots of companies are innovating with sustainable materials for amenities and onboard textiles, or focusing on sustainable menu planning. And that really excites me, the thought that we can be part of that journey of making the elements of the in-flight experience and travel as a whole more eco-friendly. And in terms of what concerns me, I'm not really sure. I suppose I'm curious about how the in-flight experience will change over the next few decades, and what impact that will have on our industry. And although we are making progress with sustainable initiatives, as Holly says, they're very complicated, and I suppose I'm a little bit concerned that maybe it's not enough, but time will tell. And overall, I'm feeling positive and excited to see what happens over the next decade, or maybe more.
It's an interesting perspective that when you said you started in 2019, July, so it is really, this is your lens right now. So hopefully everything is optimistic going forward. Let's see, and certainly a time that will be redefining a lot of things. But your career is basically defined during the pandemic, essentially, right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Helen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Helen, anything to add?
I want to sound like a copycat, but everything I had was around sustainability too. I joined the airline industry a year ago. So I'm working with a lot of producers and with sites that I've actually never visited because I haven't been able to so far because of COVID. But everything I had for the positive side was all around sustainability and that technological integration with onboard and pre-ordering systems and communication from airlines to try and inform the customer a bit more about what's going on and why is their meal 5 minutes late, or why is the plane running late, or a bit more communication from that side. But the flip side for me of that whole sustainability movement is that I think we're going to have a lot more pressure from our consumers to be more sustainable, and I think there needs to be more advice to the consumers about what is achievable right now and what those changes that they're demanding of us are going to mean for their in-flight experience. Because a lot of them, from the people that I've spoken to, they don't understand what pre-ordering means. And if they don't pre-order, there might be meals on the plane that are never going to be eaten. And that side of it just isn't discussed, and it's not communicated to the consumer itself.
Right, yeah. And the waste is phenomenal. And sometimes you say it's a cost versus a product kind of debate. But I think the more it becomes accepted, the less the cost is an impact, because then the costs go down as well. So it's a win-win in that situation. So I'll shift gears really quickly, and then I'll start with Sandra actually on this one. With the loss of so much talent in our industry, what do you think companies should really focus on in promoting onboard services and promoting our industry? What do you think are some of the top areas companies should really, as they start to emerge, maybe put more effort and more time into?
There are probably lots of elements out there that we could focus on, but I will take a look at what we are experiencing with our staff, our employees globally, and share a bit of my thoughts around that. What we currently are seeing in the situation under pressure and the crisis and so on is that as we have all discussed in the beginning, the uncertainty piece is really putting pressure on the attractiveness of our industry, and if it makes sense to actually stay with us or look for something else. So this is definitely one thing that I think we should highly focus on to make sure that we focus on the opportunity side, find answers and solutions for meeting the needs of the people, really listening in on what drives you, what is motivating you, what is important for you in the job. So I'm closely listening here to Helen and Holly and the young ones here in the group. So really focusing on culture, on sustainability topics, on how can I, make use of opportunities and what is important for me. Things like working flexibly. We have kind of learned that in a year, fast forward, high speed, just seeing that it works. And I think there are topics out there that you can highlight, really understanding from your people what are their needs and react to that. And this is what we are currently doing. And that relates to attracting people to our business, but at the same time also actually retaining people, because we don't need only fresh and new talent. We also need the experience that we have within the company. So we need to have that mixture. And just one more comment also in regards to the sustainability piece, because I'm also very into that at the moment. It's usually focused a lot around the ecological piece or the financial piece, but there's also the social aspect. So a lot around what is important for people, and that's something that we can highly focus on, and looking at cultural aspect, values. What is our culture about? How is our leadership culture defined? And how do we foster diversity in our company to actually get the best out of the variety of people, thoughts, and perspectives to push our business forward. And this is something that we are currently focusing on, really being very close to people, listening in, and be authentic about what can we do and what can we maybe not, but really focus on the plus side, on the opportunities piece, and bring that forward.
Yeah, and I agree. Definitely thinking outside the box too. Traditional sort of airline catering, if I use that as an example, you're thinking production lines and all of those things, but how can you redefine that? Look at the supply chain, be more efficient, be more sustainable. So I think a lot of opportunities there. Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, again, I fully endorse what's being said, and I'm loving the enthusiasm of the next generation um, panelists here, because I'm really concerned about future-proofing our business. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but I do think we need to look. Now's the time really to look at catching the stars and bringing them a little bit into play in our organisations. So for me, it's about making sure that we perhaps really focus as companies on the recruitment process. Don't just freestyle, just really think about what kind of talent, what kind of chemistry you want to bring into your business that will take it forward. There is such a thing sometimes as positive disruption. So, when you copy and paste job descriptions, or you copy and paste the principles that you have within your organization, you may not be up to speed. Interviews should be a two-way process. Yes, it's about, of course, finding out all you can about the candidate and peeling the layers of the onion as much as you can in terms of their competencies, particularly the more senior you go in terms of the higher paid and the jobs where leaders are being asked to come in and really re-engineer or restructure a business. You've got to be very careful about the entire sort of fit of that candidate. But I also like to think that we're encouraging we're encouraging questions about is this a fun industry to work in? What could I expect? How difficult could it be? Do you want me to work certain hours? How mobile do I need to be? Sometimes we gloss over those things in order to just make a recruitment and to make a position filled as quickly as possible. And I think we need to take a bit more time and understand, particularly now, as Holly was saying and one or two others are saying, future employees are looking very carefully. They're doing their homework. They're doing their research on the companies that they may want to work with. I like to see companies going out to universities and institutions and really talking to all of the students who may or may not at that point be thinking about that particular company or that particular sector, but will realize, with my interest in marketing, I could work there. With my interest in food science, I could go into that sector. With my interest in operational excellence and project management, I could get into that workshop. I could get into that factory. I could get into that flight kitchen. I think we're not taking as much time to really focus. The industry offers not just a great global opportunity. I certainly got that traveling all over the world for 20 plus years with Gate, more countries and more air miles than I ever would have believed I could have consumed in my lifetime. And all the time you're meeting culturally different references, you're enjoying different experiences. I don't think we sell that side. Of course, it's not everybody that gets to travel. It's not everybody that gets to different parts of the world. But you're part of a combined force that is bringing such a lot of pleasure and a lot of experience. You can be proud of getting involved in this industry and taking it forward and protecting it.
Yeah, good point. So I want to shift for a minute and kind of take it from a consumer perspective. And I'm going to ask April, Helen, and Holly to give an answer to this. So we'll talk a little bit about what you when you travel. Number one, what's important to you? And number two is give me an example, either within the industry or outside the industry, of a company that really, let's say, exceeded your expectations in that experience. So what's important to you when you travel? And then an example of something where it was kind of a wow factor when you were traveling. So I will go ahead and start with April.
Sure. So I think the priority for me is a good selection of vegetarian and vegan food on board. I've certainly had some less than impressive vegetarian food on board, and I really appreciate it when there's not only a good standalone option on the menu, but even better, maybe a couple of options to choose from. I think Eurostar is maybe one company that really comes to mind with a really impressive menu, especially in premium, where it's designed by Raymond Blanc. But otherwise, I know loads of caterers in flight are expanding their veggie offering, like LSG and Retail Emotion and Monty's, for example. And otherwise, I guess pre-COVID, I might have said that good quality IFE and Wi-Fi was a priority for me. But whilst it is still important, I actually think my biggest priority now is just feeling safe on board. I'm very fortunate to be fully vaccinated, but I'm still very conscious of social distancing, especially seeing as my friends and my partner are still waiting for their second jabs. I recently flew for the first time post-COVID just from London to Edinburgh with EasyJet, and I was satisfied with the precautions that they had on board. But I think going forward, how safe I feel will be a really key differentiator between who I choose to fly with again for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Helen?
My consumer perspective comes from that of a celiac, hence why I work in the special meal sector. So I can't have gluten. And unfortunately, as April mentioned, I've also had some shocking experiences, including an 8-hour flight to the US where no food was loaded to me because they loaded a vegan meal instead, which was unsuitable for me. So I think for me, what's most important for me is just safety in my food choices. If I'm stuck in an airport, stuck in a plane, I can't pop out and get something. I am confined with what's on that plane. In terms of exceeding my expectations, the following week I was on an hour's flight within the UK with a very, very low cost airline that had a hot noodle pot that was available for me. And I think that just really contrasted the 8-hour flight to America. I had nothing to eat. In 1 hour within the UK, there was an emergency backup meal option for me that I could have eaten. And I think for me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, great. And as you mentioned earlier, too, the pre-order, I think, is something that's key as airlines start doing that. It addresses the sustainability, but also the meal choices, too. Holly, anything to add?
I think, I guess, as someone that works in consumer research, I think it's really important to think about the consumer experience and for that to be as smooth as possible. For example, I heard the other day about a hotel chain wanting to reinvent the check-in process to make it really extravagant and 6-star quality. But, after they had done the research, they found that most guests actually wanted to avoid check-in altogether. So, like, when I've been to a few Airbnbs, it's really great when, there's just a code to a key and then, it's just really smooth and easy in anytime you like. So yeah, I think a smooth process is important, and to get there, you have to think about a consumer and do your research with the consumer.
I think in the past we did surveys in terms of how many times a customer or a passenger would want to interact with individuals at the airport. And it was essentially, they didn't really want to. They just wanted to go through and kind of control their own journey. So how do you start thinking about that versus looking at the process? Do you even need that process? So that's really, I think, the think outside the box. So we'll have a final question. I'll ask each of you just to take a minute maybe to give your thoughts. But from your perspective, as we look at new talent and as we look at building strength in the industry, what would you say is one thing companies should really prioritize and focus on? So I will lead. I'll pick on Mike for the last question and lead, and then I'll kind of go around the room. So Mike?
I think the way I'd like to answer that question is that I first of all want to recognize the level of energy that companies need to appreciate right now is so important. We're talking about talent. We need to nurture talent, but we also need to show a lot of respect and a lot of regard for people who have been in the industry for quite a long time and clearly have never seen or experienced anything like they're experiencing now. So I think managing with a certain level of emotional intelligence is quite significant and quite important going forward. And I wanted to give a shout out to Onboard Hospitality, because I think what they've done with their 3 Ps, the profit, the people, and the planet, are so relevant, because they do something which is so key to me in my 20 plus years, as I say, within this industry, and that is they recognize the strength of community. So what I want to see an understanding of is that we are a lot stronger right now collaborating. If we want to accelerate, we collaborate. So what I want to see is people perhaps leaving their guns outside the door a little bit in terms of competitive spirit and an aggressive competitive experience, which we've always had in this industry, and just show a little bit more of respect for other ideas and share and exchange. Because I think the only way to get out of this issue is to ensure that we come along and pull each other along together. There's plenty of room in this industry for many, many elements of the supply chain to function and to function well. There's plenty of opportunity, as we say, to bring people in with new ideas and fresh minds, to adjust the way we work and recalibrate the way we work. So I just want to see, a positive, complexion for the industry right now.
Yeah, I agree. I'll move over to Holly.
I think, to my point earlier, it's really important that businesses think about their social and environmental impact, and to be really clear about their purpose and their goals, so that their employees can go on that journey with them and feel really motivated and like they're accomplishing something really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's a common theme with our discussion today. Helen?
I think travel. I think we need to be pushing the element that when you're in this industry, you can travel to all these amazing places. Social media has done us the favor that it's made the world infinitely big and infinitesimally small. I can search a million places to go on holiday, but within 2 minutes I could find the nearest airport and book the hotel that I'm going to stay at. I need to be prioritizing showing young people how amazing this world is, and that if they enter this industry, they can travel it.
Yeah. I think when I first joined, I took a trip to Bermuda for 24 hours. So it was, it also gives you lots of energy to travel, because you have the energy from work and the excitement. But it was a quick trip. April?
I think key is just to expose how exciting and creative our industry can be. We've said already that it can be a relatively sort of hidden industry, but in my perhaps biased mind, I don't know how anybody could not want to work in our industry if they knew about everything that goes on.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Sandra?
Yeah, I think I just agree to that. I mean, if I just ask myself personally, what is it that hooks me to this industry? It's that fantastic combination of 2 very emotional elements, the food and the travel. So it's just the best out of this world. So really bringing that across to people, and maybe to bring a different perspective to the end in this discussion here. For me, it comes all together in leadership. So the leadership that we provide is, together with the people, driving the enthusiasm, bringing across the drive, the direction, the innovation, the culture that we define as a company. So make that place something very attractive, and that comes through the leadership that we bring into the organization. And this is one of the key elements for me personally.
Yeah, I think we've heard a lot of common themes too, through sustainability, leadership, collaboration, a lot of things. So there are a lot of obviously common platforms, regardless of how long you've been in the industry, that I think are important to us. I think we can all agree we're a resilient industry. Many of us have been through lots of ups and downs. I would say this is maybe unparalleled, unprecedented in terms of the challenges. But I know we've also talked about it's about collaboration and working together to bring the industry back to strength. I think I also can speak for all of us when we're ready to welcome passengers back into the air and travel. What does that look like? We always talk about the new normal, and I think it's just the new. What is it going to be defined by? And I think the key is looking at it through a lens of cross-generational. So both with new leaders and current current leaders and seasoned leaders is how do we look at it from an employee, but also a customer standpoint. So bringing that all together. So number one, thank you to this esteemed panel, Sinja, Mike, April, Helen, and Holly. Great discussion. Appreciate your participation. Also, thanks to our attendees today. Hopefully you have some information and insights that are helpful for you going forward with your own company. And also, again, to WTCE and Onboard Hospitality for hosting this session. So enjoy the rest of the expo and have a great day, everyone. Thank you.